Welcome to the channel, guys. In this video you're going to join me for a comparison between the Porsche Cayman R and the Porsche 718 GT4. These are both Caymans and they both have PDK gearboxes. So on left we have the Porsche Cayman R, which is a 2011 car, 33,000 miles, and it's in peridot green with the bucket seats, PDK gearbox and the spider wheels with steel brakes. To the right we have a 718 GT4 in crayon, which has ceramic brakes, the upgraded headlights and the really nice one fixed piece bucket seats. So both of these cars, let's just get it straight away, both of these cars are amazing. But let's compare them. So the first thing we're going to compare is we're going to have a walk around of these cars and walk you around them. So they both look absolutely fantastic. Of course, for me, just because of colour alone, the Cayman R just looks sensational in the peridot green. And you know, I am a person that likes my bright colours. So there we go, there's the rear of the cars. Obviously the Cayman R does have a spoiler, aero, but it's probably a crime to call it aero because the probably doesn't what's in the Cayman R, I suspect, gives it no additional downforce or extremely little, whereas the aero on the 718 GT4 is real aero. So both of these cars are Caymans, and one of the beauties of the Caymans is just how usable it is. So we have the 718 key here, and we're going to open it up. And we're going to open the hatches and just quickly show you the amazing storage on offer in this 718 GT4, which makes it such a usable everyday car. So there's your rear boot. You can get plenty in there, easily several soft bags, and you can also put stuff tied down on that rear latch there. Then you've got the cabin, which has lots of very useful storage. So you've got a bin there, you've got a bin there, you've also got a glove box, you've got a central reservation which you can get a bottle of Coke in or any bottle of fizzy drink. Cabin is very, very nice place to live. And you've got your front boot, which will easily get 2 carry-ons, maybe 3 carry-ons in there, no problem at all. So, a superb car for daily use. Let's see how the Cayman R compares. Are we thinking it's going to be as good or not? So, I believe the car's unlocked, so again, we have a fancy key holder. It's an aftermarket. You can open both boots from the fob, just like the 718. It's very handy if you've been shopping. So you have the front one, opens in exactly the same fashion. And again, you've got a rather large boot there, which should easily get 2 carry-ons in, maybe 3. You've got some additional storage here as well. You can put some light items in there. The battery lifts back that one there. Closes in the same fashion. Then you've got your rear boot. This car does have the optional rear cargo net. We just pan around. And you can see the rear cargo net, and of course again easily get several soft bags in the back of there. And then we'll show you inside the cabin. This car also has bucket seats, but these are the older 2-piece bucket seats, so folding buckets as they are called in Porsche world. Unfortunately, however, you have very limited, well, I say limited, there is no door pockets. Thankfully there is a large glove box. There is a centre cubby hole, but you cannot get a bottle of Coke in it. And you have cup holders exactly the same as the 718 GT4. So both of these cars, from a practicality level, everyday use, doing European road trips, track days, both of these cars are superbly practical. They really are very easy to live with. So now let's get into the driving dynamics. Let's just talk about the physical size of these two cars. The 7.8 GT4 is not a big car, but it is definitely a bigger car. One thing I've noticed from driving both of these on the road, when you are on a narrower stretch of road, I find myself holding back quite a lot in the GT4 because it feels a wider car to drive, because it is a wider car to drive. And as such, on some of Britain's more narrower B roads, I find myself obviously taking a lot more care and caution whilst obviously driving the 718. I mean, it's not a massive car, but it's definitely bigger than the 987. So yeah, on most roads, the 718 is not a problem. It's not crazy big. It's still a moderately sized vehicle. It's not a large vehicle, but the 987 generation Cayman Boxster, is fair to say, is a smaller vehicle and is of the era of cars that were considerably smaller. So when I find myself driving the Cayman R on narrower stretches of B roads, I'm not holding back. I have the confidence to really push the 987 Cayman really hard, even on narrower sections of road, because you're always on your side of the road with substantial amount still to spare. Whereas I'm a bit more cautious in the GT4. But both of these cars, inspire huge levels of confidence whilst driving them. But I just thought it was important to make note that, yes, the GT4 does feel a wider car when you're in it, and it obviously is a wider car. But when you're in the Cayman R, it feels a small car because it is a small car, but it actually feels small, it feels nimble, inspires massive levels of confidence on any kind of road there is. So yeah, the GT4 is wider, the Cayman R is smaller, and you notice that while I was driving. So let's talk engines. In the Cayman R, we have a 3.4 litre flat six, naturally aspirated, making around 330 horsepower. And in the 718 GT4, we have a 4 litre flat six, again naturally aspirated, making 420 horsepower. Obviously, there is a weight difference. The Cayman R is about 1,330 kilos, and the 718 GT4 is about 1,420 kilos. So there's about 100 kilos difference. That may vary by a few kilos here and there, depending on specifications of each car, but both of these cars have got aircon, etc., etc. So these are livable cars, as I would call it. Got some massive bumblebees flying around. I don't mind the bumblebees, but I don't like the whoppies. So yeah, in a straight line, the 718 is faster. It also feels much quicker. Where the 718 really, really is an improvement over the Cayman R is the instant punch acceleration due to the extra torque from the 4 litre engine. Has a lot more mid-range torque, which means second gear in the GT4 is really amazing because you can floor it at 2,000 RPM. The car accelerates hard and it revs all the way out to their 8,000 RPM limiter, and it gets there relatively quick. Both cars are actually quite similar geared. The Cayman R is very slightly lower geared, but which is probably just down to the simple fact it's on 19-inch wheels, whereas I believe the 718 is potentially on 20-inch wheels or a staggered setup. Let me see if I can see this rear one. No, but that looks a 20-inch wheel to me. They definitely look quite a bit bigger than what's on the Cayman R. Oh yeah, 20 inch. So yeah, the gearing is ever so slightly shorter on the Cayman R. You're talking about 74 mile an hour, 70 mile an hour in second compared to 76 in the GT4. About 100 mile an hour in third compared to about 105 in the GT4. So neither have short gearing. They both are long geared, and the acceleration, the punch, is more ferocious in the GT4. Also, the GT4 has that power everywhere, whereas the Cayman is a more revvy. car really enjoying being above 5,000 RPM. Whereas Cayman 4, the GT4, that has power everywhere. Excitement wise from the engines, I say second gear in the GT4 is very exciting, but then it almost feels like the gears after are just that little bit too long, which I find it not as exciting in the higher gears, whereas the Cayman R I do find a little bit more exciting in the higher gears, which must just be from the way it's making its power higher up the rev range, and maybe because it weighs a little bit less and it's ever so slightly shorter gear. But yeah, I mean, the GT4 is quicker, no doubt about it. The Cayman R is still not a slow car. It's still a 10-second 0 to 100 mile an hour car, which is all you ever really need on the road. It's ample fast enough. The GT4, I haven't actually looked up the stats on this, but I would take a stab in the air about 8.5 to 9 seconds 0 to 100 mile an hour for the GT4. So let's talk about something that I feel the Cayman R definitely wins hands down. Steering feel. Obviously, they both have fantastic steering, but the Cayman R has an hydraulic steering rack, whereas the GT4 has a power-assisted electric rack. And the weighting of the Cayman R and the feedback is just on another level. And this isn't to say that the steering is bad in the GT4, because if you'd never driven a Cayman R or an hydraulic powered steering car, like a good one, like a McLaren or a Lotus, you know, all these cars with the epic hydraulic racks, or the old 997, 987 generation Porsches, you'd be very happy with the steering in the GT4. It is very direct, it's very fast, it's light, it's very easy to point, it's very easy to steer, and you do get some feedback. So it's not completely devoid of feedback. There is feedback. It's just, unfortunately, the Cayman R definitely trumps it in steering. It's nicer, it's heavier, it's weightier, and there's a lot more sensations coming through the steering. Where they are both absolutely fantastic is that they both deliver the same level of communication through the bum of the seat. Both of these cars are talking via their suspension all the time. The Cayman R does move around a bit more, which I really enjoy. That's also most likely due to the fact the track is not as wide, and of course it runs a smaller tyre setup. So smaller tyres, the car isn't as wide, it has less mechanical grip, which in turn means it moves around more. But something else that I've noticed with the Cayman R, it's also, I mean, our Cayman R is set up, I have had it set up so it is aligned, and it is also on a more road orientated Continental Sport 7 tyre. So both front and rear always have maximum grip all the time, but we're running 2.5 degrees negative front and 2 degrees negative rear camber. But the Cayman R is very pointy, but also very neutral in its handling balance. So understeer, oversteer pretty much happen at the same time, which is kind of how I like a car to be set up. If I'm pushing it hard on the front, when the understeer kicks in, I want to be able to very easily move that to oversteer, or very quickly get the understeer gone. Whereas the GT4, and again, this could just be purely alignment, the owner of the GT4, it is aligned, it is up, but it does seem a little bit more prone to understeer. He has had it set up because he said before he had it set up, it really had a lot of understeer, and he disliked it. So he set it up. It is a big improvement in his words, but there is still a hint of understeer in the chassis compared to the Cayman R. Something else that could be causing that understeer, of course, is the fact that the GT4 is on Michelin Cup 2 tyres, and anybody who's owned a car on these tyres will know that, yes, you can drive a car on the road in them. They are absolutely fine. They're not going to kill you unless you do something stupid, but they are much more difficult to get heat in, particularly the fronts, especially on the road. So it could also be that, put both these cars on Continental 7s, I'm sure the GT4 would be that bit nicer on the road again. So yeah, steering feedback, the Cayman R wins. Chassis feedback, they're both equals. They both feel great. When the cars do get loose and start moving around, they are both have amazing balance. The chassis on both of these cars are absolutely incredible. The brakes. Now, I will admit the Cayman R is slightly modified. It's running a GT3 brake master cylinder, which makes the brakes much more stronger, quicker, with less, you don't have to push the pedal as much. And it's got track pads in, I think they're Pagid RS29s. Whereas the GT4 doesn't need modding because it's on ceramic. So, you know, it's got fantastic brakes from the factory. But again, what I did notice, both cars have got equal braking power. For me, on the road, the GT4 isn't stopping any better than the Cayman R. In fact, in some situations, if the road is a bit cold, the tyres are not warm, the Cayman R will probably stop in the shorter distance, just simply because everything works that little bit more quicker. Doesn't need the heat in the tyres as much as Cup 2s, and the steels just work instantly, whereas ceramics also do like a bit of heat. But forget, both cars have truly incredible brakes. The sensation coming through the brake pedal, the feel through the brake pedal, incredible on both cars. I can't really discern one from the other. Braking performance, they are both equal. The advantage you get to the Cayman R is its brakes are vastly cheaper. The advantage you get to the GT4 is its brakes look vastly superior. They are much bigger. Don't know if you can see them here, I'll go in close. The discs are like a mirror finish, which makes them look incredible, and they keep the wheels clean. I say we did about 250, maybe 300 miles driving around Wales yesterday, used a full tank of petrol. We got the car back and the wheels were still clean. I drive the Cayman R to work and back relatively sedately, and the wheels are covered in dust. So that's the biggest advantage of ceramic brakes. They keep your wheels clean, and they're also typically very quiet, never had any squeaks or squealing from the GT4, whereas the performance brake pads on the Cayman R, they can get very loud, almost like a train stopping. But performance-wise, they both stop equally. Now, handling-wise, let's not beat around the bush here. Both these cars are excellent handling cars. And again, I would rate them both as pretty equal. They both move around. They're both very easy to catch. If going sideways is your thing, they're both easy to send sideways and easy to keep in control. You'd be very unlucky if you got bit by either of these cars, because the chassis on them are impeccably good. They have absolutely superb chassis on them. They really, really do. So, and I've just noticed, I think the number plate is wonky on the Cayman R. That can be a job for later. So yeah, but grip, this is definitely where things get a bit different. The GT4 definitely has the edge in top cornering speeds, especially long sweeping corners. Any corners that are like 70 mile an hour plus, I would say that the GT4 is definitely going to be able to take those corners quite a bit quicker than the Cayman R. Again, due to several reasons. It's running a wider track. The GT4 has the GT3 front suspension, so it gives it that better turning. I would also say that the turning, the pointiness of the GT4 is better as long as you're under the understeer threshold. The car is more keen, is easier, better to turn in. And it's a wider track, and it's on wider tyres, and it's on stickier tyres. And it's a 10-year plus new platform. So yes, it is the faster cornering car. Equal drivers on a road, you could maybe keep the GT4 in sight, but both drivers being equal, in theory the GT4 will leave. But on a fun road drive out, where you're not pushing the cars to the hardest, the Cayman R will typically keep up with the GT4. But if you're both really pushing and there's no speed limits, and it's very fast A roads, I'd expect the GT4 to be faster. Now, if we go to track, both these cars again are great on track. You can hammer them all day long. You're not going to have any issues. It's what they were designed for. It's what they're great at. But let's not beat around the bush here. The GT4, again, that wider track comes into play. The wider tyres and all that aero. The GT4 is going to be quite a bit quicker, probably around any circuit. The only kind of circuit where there may not be much difference is on a very, very small, very tight circuit. But typically any UK racetrack, the GT4 is going to be the faster car, absolutely. And by quite a margin, I would suspect. Because of course, between these two cars, you've got the 981 GT4 as well. So the Cayman R kind of started the special Caymans off because it was the first Cayman to get a bit of Porsche Motorsport treatment. A lot of people are upset that they put an R badge on it because they don't feel it's really an R. I kind of agree with that to some levels, but it started the game rolling. The launch car got the Peridot green paintwork, which is an absolute must. I think it looks incredible. And of course you could have it without aircon and no radio to get it in the lightest weight possible, which I think is low 1300 kilos, whereas most of these cars are probably about 1340 kilos. And that because most people put the AC and the radio back in, just like ours has here. But this started off, also got GT3 aluminium doors to help save the weight. I think typically if you spec'd it out Porsche wanted you to spec it, you'd save 40 to 50 kilos over a Cayman S. Most of them are probably 20 to 30 kilos lighter. But it was the start of special Caymans. Because then you got, eventually, it took a long time, but the 981 GT4 arrived, which was a truly special Cayman. And of course, a step up in lap time performance over a Cayman R, and probably nicer to live with day to day. And then of course you've got the 718 GT4, which is a step up again in lap time performance and even nicer to live with day to day. So I think that's something else we should mention. We've kind of talked about performance, etc., etc. But how are these cars like to live with day to day? The 718 GT4 wins it hands down. It rides much better. The cabin quality is better. There's no rattles or like knocks or bangs inside the GT4. It's a really good riding car. Even if you put the PASM in the sport setting, so the harsher setting, most of the time it's still riding better than the Cayman R. There'd be some times that maybe at lower speeds where being in the firmer setting makes the GT4 as firm as the Cayman R or slightly firmer. But if you use the softer setting, the GT4 is a much comfier car than the Cayman R. The Cayman R is actually quite a firm car. It's because it's got uprated springs and shocks compared to the Cayman S. So it's quite a firm riding car. And of course, because of its age and how they're put together and being the first Caymans, they can suffer some harmonics and rattles from that rear deck lid in that area, which ours does from time to time. You get some quite nasty harmonic drones from certain road surfaces, which the GT4 doesn't suffer from. So to live with day to day, yes, the GT4 is an easier car. The GT4, you can do anything. You can do anything, you go anywhere. Fine. You can in the Cayman R, it's just firmer and it's a bit noisier. And of course the PDK, something I nearly missed out here. The PDK in the 718 GT4 is a big improvement over the PDK in the Cayman R. These cars, both PDKs, so it's great for a comparison. But the newer PDK in the 718 is a big improvement. It's just instantaneous. You pull the paddle, the gears in. There's no thing. The downshifts in the Cayman R are pretty instantaneous, admittedly, but upshifts, I mean, it's fast. It doesn't annoy me, but there is what feels like a point of a second delay from pulling the paddle to it doing the gear. One kind of thing I do like about the Cayman R, when you put the gearbox in its Sports Plus mode, the upshifts are very dramatic and very harsh. I actually quite like that. Whereas in the GT4, they're totally seamless. If you do put the gearbox in PDK Sports Plus, you do know it's changed gear. And if you change gear right at the 8,000 RPM limiter, particularly in second gear or first gear, you will get a shunt. So it is nice, but the Cayman R is a little bit more ferocious in the way it bangs every gear in, whereas the GT4 only seems to bang them in with a level of ferocity if you ride on the limiter and giving it everything, whereas the Cayman R pretty much bashes them in all the time. If you're in that Sport Plus mode. If you're in regular mode, it's totally seamless, which I find totally boring. Whereas in the regular mode in the GT4, you still know it changed gear, but it is also seamless. So how they've done that and engineered that in is very good. But the PDK is much better in the GT4. And I think I'm going to round this conclusion up. Again, if I've missed anything or anyone has any questions, please do feel free to ask in the comments and I will try my best to answer your questions. But the way I would sum this up, if you want a one-car garage and you have a budget up to 100k and you want a one-car garage, the Cayman 718 GT4 literally does everything. It is so good. You can go to the shops in it and you can get loads of shopping in those two boots. So it's no problem for that. You could go and travel Europe for 2 weeks with your wife, your girlfriend, whatever, and it'll do that, no issues. Plenty of luggage space for those ladies to get all that luggage in those boots. And you could go and take it to your favourite tracks in Europe and the UK and hammer the shit out of it all day long, and then just drive it home, and it'll do that too. Cayman R, yes, it could be your only one car garage, but it is that bit firmer. And that extra firmness that the Cayman R has can get grinding if you are using it every day and the roads around where you live are maybe not the best. At that point, you might actually want to consider getting a Cayman R and maybe changing the suspension out to some high-end coilovers, which I guess in theory could actually improve the ride quality, especially as you can set them up manually, or maybe just get a Cayman S. And let's talk running costs. Of course, both of these cars, a Cayman R, you're talking 35,000 to 45,000 British pounds to get you in a Cayman R. Good spec, good condition, etc., etc. To get yourself in a 718 GT4, you're talking 55 to 88,000. Spec, age and miles, the price varies a lot. 55,000 is going to be a high mileage car with comfort seats, etc., etc. Far less desirable. You want a car with the right seats, with the nice ceramic brakes, with the nice headlights, you're talking closing in on 80k, especially if you want PDK. If you want manual in a GT4, especially a 718, it's cheaper than a PDK by quite a lot. PDK is actually typically cheaper on the Cayman R than the manual. It's the opposite way around. People prefer the manuals in the Cayman Rs, and I do get it because the PDK, though it is good in the Cayman R, it is not as good as a 718, whereas a manual doesn't really age. So the manual in a Cayman R is amazing. The manual in a 718 GT4 is amazing. They're both just as good as each other. But if you've got a budget up to 100k, it's hard to really find a car that does everything better than a 718 GT4. Some people will be arguing, what about an Audi R8? Yeah, an Audi R8 is a fantastic road car. They really are. I'd probably say an R8 is as good, if not better, road car than the GT4. Apart from some things, if you checked out the front luggage space in an R8, it's terrible. You ain't going away for 2 weeks in an R8. Certainly not if you've got a wife. It's never happening because the storage space in an R8 is terrible. The fuel consumption in an R8 is terrible. So though it can do it, an R8 will cost you a lot more money, because that's something else I want to get on with these cars. So you've got, let's call average of 40k purchase price of the Cayman R, and let's say average of 75k purchase price for the GT4. These two cars are also extremely cheap to run. You only have to service them both once every 2 years at an average cost of probably £1,000. You can extend the warranty on them. You don't need to on the R. The 987.2 generation Boxsters and Caymans are known for their reliability. They are known for being a car that, as long as you service it according to schedule, you can put 200,000 miles on them without having any crazy big bills. GT4, 718, it's advisable to have warranty. They are reliable, but they can have daft little things go. Like they have a reputation for going through the dynamic engine mounts, which probably cost £500 a pop, whereas extended warranty on a 718 GT4 is about £700. So again, it's not particularly expensive. Economy-wise, both of these cars are fantastic. Both of these on a motorway journey, cruising at 70 to 80 mile an hour, they're both going to return near as damn it 40 miles to the gallon. When you're enjoying both of these cars on your favourite country road, they're both also still going to return near as damn it probably 17 to 20 miles to the gallon. So they're both economical, they're both very reliable, they're both relatively cheap to service, and they're both actually relatively depreciation proof as well. Cayman R's have been 35 to 45 grand for the last 10 years. The prices on those really hasn't moved much at all. And if you're buying a 718 GT4 now and you're buying one for 60 to 80k, depending on spec, you're not going to lose. You're not going to lose your shirt on a 718 GT4. Maybe 10 grand maximum after 1 or 2 years ownership if you buy it well. Of course, do be aware of buying from a dealer. They'll have their markup, and then if you give it back to the dealer, they'll bend you over. You know how it goes. They want to sell you at the highest price, but then they want to give you the lowest price to buy it back. So you buy it smart, you buy it sensible, and you won't have much pain in owning these cars. They're reliable. They are good value for money, and they do not cost a fortune to run. In fact, they, you know, compared to Ferraris, McLarens and Lamborghinis, they are much, much cheaper to own and run. Looks wise, which one do you think's better, guys? Please let me know in the comments. I am going to say the GT4 is the better looking car. I think it's got a much more aggressive stance to it. They're both the same colour. The GT4 is just hands down better, but the peridot green on the Cayman R is just something else. But yeah, I'm going to give it to the GT4 because, hey, a GT4 in peridot green, now that would be something. So that's my comparison of these two cars. Any questions, feel free to drop in the comments and just ask. As always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel.